The morning air in New York was crisp, yet inside the iconic Good Morning America studio, tension crackled like static. Cameras rolled, lights blazed, and the audience settled into their seats, unaware that the next few minutes would explode into one of the most talked-about moments of the year. Timothée Chalamet, the young actor whose performances had captivated critics and fans alike, was scheduled for a routine interview. A topic seemed innocuous at first: his latest film, a project already stirring buzz for its intense performances and star-studded cast. Yet, beneath the polished smiles and prepared questions, a quiet friction simmered at tension that would soon boil over in front of millions. The cameras switched live, Michael Strahan's warm, familiar voice filling the room with its practiced charm. "Timothy, welcome back. Always a pleasure. How's the film coming along?" he asked, leaning slightly forward, a smile that could disarm even the most guarded guest. Timothy's initial smile was polite, restrained, almost rehearsed, but his eyes told a different story, slightly narrowed, attentive, almost wary. There had been whispers backstage, among the crew and other guests, of a minor disagreement over scheduling and promotional obligations. Nothing public, nothing scandalous, yet the weight of these tiny frictions as a way of amplifying under studio lights and live broadcast. As the conversation unfolded, it became clear that Timothy's patience was thinning. Michael, in his usual energetic cadence, asked about a particular scene in the film, a scene that, while central to the plot, had already caused Timothée discomfort in previous interviews. The actor answered carefully, measured words laced with subtle tension. But Michael, unknowingly or perhaps inadvertently, pushed further, probing in a way that felt less like curiosity and more like an interrogation. The audience laughed nervously at a joke Michael made, but behind the smile, Timothy's jaw tightened. His voice, usually smooth and composed, edged into something sharper, more brittle. "You know," Timothée said, a quiet intensity creeping into his tone, "I appreciate your interest, but sometimes there are aspects of the process I prefer to keep between the people involved in the project." The words hung in the air, a pause longer than normal, a subtle crack in the polished veneer of live television. Michael's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a flicker almost imperceptible, but the cameras caught everything. The audience, sensing the shift, grew quiet. Social media would later explode over this very pause, dissecting each micro-expression, each gesture, as if every second of hesitation were a deliberate statement. What happened next was a collision of frustration and impulse. Michael, attempting to recover the flow, made a lighthearted quip about how actors always have secrets they can't share with the public. But Timothy's response was immediate, sharp, impossible to ignore. "I'm not here to play games," he said, his voice firm, carrying a weight that seemed to reverberate through the studio. The live audience gasped, a few murmurs running through the seats, the kind of reaction that a morning show rarely elicits. Michael, professional and poised, chuckled nervously, trying to redirect the energy, but the moment had already slipped from control. Timothy's hand brushed his script, almost subconsciously, as if anchoring himself. He took a breath, the tension coiling visibly in his shoulders, before standing abruptly. The studio lights reflected off the polished floor, casting a long shadow as he walked toward the exit. "I'm done," he said, voice echoing, a declaration, rather than a complaint. Cameras pivoted, audience members leaned forward, and the production team scrambled to respond. Michael, caught mid-sentence, froze for a moment, processing what had just happened. It was live. It was unscripted. It was chaos. Backstage, producers whispered, trying to gauge the impact, while social media accounts lit up in real time. Clips were being uploaded before the segment even ended, each one framed as Timothée storms off GMA, or unexpected meltdown. Analysts would later dissect the exchange, noting the rare glimpse of an actor breaking character, not in a movie, but in real life. The narrative was already forming. A young star, frustrated with invasive questioning, standing up for boundaries, challenging the polished, rehearsed world of morning television. The aftermath in the studio was tense, but professionally contained. Michael continued the segment, his smile now tighter, voice slightly restrained, as if the rhythm of the show itself had changed. The audience, both in studio and at home, couldn't look away. There was an electricity in the air, a palpable sense that something extraordinary had just occurred, something beyond the mundane interviews and celebrity chatter that usually defined the hour. Every camera angle, every reaction shot amplified the drama. The lights, the polished sets, the perfectly placed chairs all became secondary to the human tension unfolding in real-time as viewers across the country replayed the clip. Hashtags began trending. Debates erupted on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Was it a calculated act, a rebellion against the intrusive machinery of celebrity interviews? Or was it a raw, unfiltered moment of frustration, the kind rarely seen in polished, broadcasted television? Media outlets scrambled to report, some framing Timothée as temperamental, others defending his right to privacy. Even casual viewers, unfamiliar with the actor's career, felt the impact of the moment, a universality of human emotion breaking through the veneer of performance. The hours that followed, statements were carefully considered, both from GMA and Timothée's representatives. But in that fleeting moment, standing in the glare of studio lights, walking away from the table, Timothée had disrupted the rhythm of the system built to control, predict, and package celebrity behavior. The scene became instantly iconic, not for what was said, but for what was refused, for the boundaries drawn, and for the vulnerability exposed. Every pause, every glance, every small gesture was dissected, replayed, and immortalized across countless screens. And yet, for those in the studio, the story was not just in the clip, it was in the atmosphere, the electricity of tension, the silence that followed his exit. It was in the way Michael, seasoned and unflappable, had to navigate the sudden shift, maintaining professionalism in the wake of raw human emotion. It was in the audience, the producers, the camera operators, each silently acknowledging the unusual gravity of what had just occurred. The morning show, a space meticulously designed for predictability, had become the stage for one of the most compelling displays of unfiltered celebrity reality in recent memory. Even after Timothée had left the studio, the echoes of that moment lingered. Clips circulated, reactions multiplied, and the narrative took on a life of its own. Analysts and fans alike debated motives, personality traits, and industry pressures. Was this a statement on celebrity culture, a warning to interviewers, or simply a human being asserting limits? The ambiguity fueled discussion, leaving audiences enthralled, emotionally invested, and hungry for more context. By the time the segment officially concluded, the incident had already achieved viral status. The story wasn't about a film anymore. It wasn't about morning television. It was about a moment of unscripted tension, raw emotion, and the fragility of performance under pressure. Viewers were left questioning not only what had happened, but what it revealed about fame, media, and the very human struggle to maintain authenticity under public scrutiny. It was the kind of event that would be replayed for years, referenced in interviews, late-night shows, and think pieces. A single, charged moment that crystallized the collision of personality, professionalism, and pressure in an arena designed for smooth smiles and rehearsed answers. Timothée Chalamet's walkout was no ordinary celebrity quarrel. It was a window into the realities of living in the glare of public attention, a cautionary tale, and a spectacle all at once. As the cameras finally powered down and the lights dimmed, the audience at home and in the studio alike were left with a singular, unforgettable image. A young actor, resolute, standing up in the most public of arenas, challenging the expectations placed upon him, and leaving an indelible mark on live television history. The tension, the shock, the questions. It was only the beginning. The hours before the interview had been deceptively calm, almost serene. The Good Morning America studio, with its bustling production crew and gleaming cameras, had the air of organized precision that morning shows are known for. Yet behind the scenes, subtle currents of tension were already swirling, invisible to the audience, who would soon witness an unexpected eruption. Timothée Chalamet arrived early, as he always did, polite and professional, yet with a certain guardedness that only those closest to him could notice. He greeted the crew with nods and quiet smiles, his body language controlled, almost rehearsed. But the eyes, those piercing, contemplative eyes, hinted at a mind already navigating the complex terrain of public expectation versus personal boundaries. Producers and assistants moved briskly, carrying clipboards, coffee, and last-minute scripts, their voices hushed yet urgent. The topic of the interview was circulated in advance, a discussion about Timothée's latest film, the depth of his character, and the themes that had resonated with audiences worldwide. On paper, it seemed straightforward, but even minor details, such as the phrasing of questions, the emphasis on particular scenes, and the expectation of lighthearted banter, can carry weight for an actor of his caliber, someone acutely aware of how every word, gesture, and expression is scrutinized in the glare of public attention. Michael Strahan, seasoned and charismatic, had reviewed the segment notes in advance. He was known for his charm, his effortless ability to connect with guests, and his infectious energy that could fill a room. Yet even Michael, with decades of television experience, had no way of predicting how Timothée would respond that morning. Behind the camera, producers whispered about potential friction, minor disagreements from previous press junkets, fleeting miscommunications, the natural tension that arises when schedules are tight, egos are high, and stakes feel immense. In television, as in life, small pressures can accumulate until a single spark ignites the room. As the clock ticked closer to airtime, Timothée rehearsed answers quietly, mouthing lines under his breath, adjusting posture, and occasionally glancing at the mirror reflecting the studio lights. A subtle unease clung to him, though it was carefully hidden beneath his composed exterior. Conversations with the director and segment producer were calm, almost perfunctory, yet the questions they posed about his motivations, the creative process, and off-camera dynamics were clearly designed to probe deeper than surface-level charm. To Timothée, this line of questioning felt invasive, not malicious, but a subtle pressure on his autonomy as an artist. The crew noticed the tension building, the quiet, almost imperceptible signs of unease. A hand lingered on a script a moment too long. A jaw tightened, an inhale held longer than necessary. These micro-expressions, invisible to casual observers, are magnified under studio lights, magnified by high-definition cameras that capture every nuance. The audience at home, of course, would only see the final product, a poised actor and a friendly host, but those in the room understood that every interaction carried layers of complexity, an invisible prelude to what was about to unfold. Michael approached Timothée with his signature warmth, extending a hand and a smile. "We're thrilled to have you back," he said, his tone professional yet inviting. Timothée nodded, returning the gesture, though his fingers lingered briefly on the edge of the table, a subtle reminder of the internal tension simmering just beneath the surface. There was a history here, small moments of miscommunication, questions that had skirted the line of comfort, and expectations that sometimes clashed with Timothée's sense of authenticity. As the interview began, Michael launched into the first question with practiced ease, aiming for a light-hearted tone, hoping to ease into deeper discussion. Timothée responded politely, carefully selecting words that honored both the production's goals and his own boundaries. But beneath the calm exterior, the actor was already calculating, measuring each phrase, each inflection. He knew that in live television, every word carries weight. Every smile can be dissected. Every pause can be transformed into a headline. And the stakes were high not just for the film, but for his public image, for the narrative of who Timothée Chalamet was as both actor and individual. Yet the tension was mutual. Michael, though unaware of any personal grievances, was sensing the subtle shifts in tone, the careful calibrations of responses, the micro pauses that suggested restraint or frustration. Experienced hosts can often detect these signals. They know when a guest is about to assert a boundary or when a conversation might veer off course. In this case, the cues were there, faint but present, a tightened jaw, a raised brow, a slight shift in seating. It was a prelude, a foreshadowing of the eruption to come, like a storm forming quietly on the horizon. Backstage, production assistants exchanged glances, noting the unusual energy. Social media teams were preparing their usual live updates, unaware that within minutes, a clip would ignite the internet, propelling the incident into viral infamy. In these quiet, controlled moments before going live, the scene was already charged with suspense, a tension that no script could fully contain. The actor's internal calculus met the host's unintentional provocations, and the audience, though yet unseen, would soon bear witness to a rare collision of professionalism, personality, and human emotion. Finally, as the countdown to live broadcast began, a hush fell over the studio. Cameras rolled into position. Microphones were tested. Timothée adjusted his posture, smoothing the fabric of his jacket, and exhaled slowly, centering himself. Michael leaned forward slightly, a reassuring presence, his smile both genuine and rehearsed. The lights intensified. The red, on-air sign glowed, and with that, the world was watching. What seemed like a simple promotional interview was now a crucible, a space where decades of public scrutiny, industry expectations, and personal boundaries would converge in a dramatic, unplanned moment. As the first words of the interview were spoken, the tension that had been simmering backstage suddenly became tangible. Timothy's measured responses met Michael's energetic inquiries. The rhythm of the conversation, normally predictable and safe, began to falter subtly. Every joke, every question, every inflection took on heightened significance. The stage, polished and controlled, had transformed into a battleground of patience, restraint, and the fragile interplay between public persona and private emotion. Audience members, cameras, and crew all sensed the shift. It was not yet the eruption, but the prelude, to build up a moment of dramatic tension where time seemed to slow, where every glance, every pause, every carefully chosen word was amplified by the knowledge that millions of viewers were watching in real time. This was the delicate space in which live television exists. The impossible balance between performance and authenticity, between host and guest, between control and chaos. And in those final moments before the clash, the unspoken question hung over the studio. How far could patience stretch when every word was scrutinized, every gesture observed, and every expression dissected? Timothée Chalamet, with the weight of expectation on his shoulders and the lens of the public eye fixed firmly upon him, was about to answer that question in a way that no one in the studio or across the world would forget. The stage was set. The tension had peaked, an invisible wire taut with anticipation. The audience, unaware of the backstage complexities, would soon witness the transformation from subtle unease to explosive confrontation. Every element, the lights, the cameras, the host's charisma, the actor's guarded energy was poised for collision. It was a rare moment in live television, unscripted, charged with emotion, and ready to leave a permanent mark on both the show and the actor's legacy. This quiet before the storm, this intricate dance of preparation, expectation, and unspoken tension laid the foundation for the extraordinary exchange that would follow a moment where professionalism, human emotion, and public spectacle would intersect in a way that would define the morning and dominate headlines for days to come. The studio lights shone brighter than usual, reflecting off the polished floors and the neatly arranged set as if amplifying the tension in the room. Timothée Chalamet sat poised, yet his posture betrayed a subtle restlessness, a barely contained energy that hinted at the storm about to unfold. Michael Strahan leaned in, flashing his signature charm, but beneath that practiced warmth, there was a flicker of anticipation, an unspoken awareness that something in this interview was teetering on the edge of the unexpected. The cameras rolled, capturing every nuance, every micro-expression, every heartbeat of the moment for millions of viewers at home. Michael opened the segment with a familiar flourish. Timothy, the world is buzzing about this new film. Fans are obsessed with your character's depth, your transformation. Tell us, how did you prepare for such an intense role? His tone was upbeat, engaging, designed to draw the guest into a comfortable narrative arc. But Timothy's eyes, scanning briefly over the lights and the crew, revealed the undercurrent of unease. His voice, smooth yet tight, responded, "It was a lot of research, a lot of observation. I had to immerse myself completely, understand every nuance." The words were careful, polite, but the subtle edge in his tone suggested he was measuring every syllable as the conversation unfolded. Michael leaned into curiosity, asking pointed questions about scenes that had previously caused Timothy discomfort in interviews. He referenced a pivotal moment in the film, a scene that carried both emotional and critical weight, and probed the actor's choices. Timothy's jaw clenched slightly, a subtle motion picked up by high-definition cameras, unnoticed by the casual viewer, but magnified on social media later. He answered, measured, and composed, but each word carried the weight of someone carefully guarding both his craft and his boundaries. Michael, unaware of the limits he was brushing against, smiled and pressed further. "Fans want the inside scoop, Timothy. They're dying to know what was going through your mind during that scene." His tone, casual and seemingly harmless, belied the intensity of the moment. Timothy inhaled sharply, the tension coiling visibly around his shoulders. "I think some things are meant to be experienced, not explained," he replied, the words firm, deliberate, and carrying a resonance. That instantly shifted the room. The pause that followed was heavy, a pregnant silence that stretched across the studio, every camera angle capturing the subtle recalibration of energy. For a moment, it seemed as if the conversation might continue without incident, but the undercurrent of pressure accumulated over previous press engagements, rehearsed questions, and the relentless scrutiny of public life was about to snap. Michael's next question, meant to be playful, inadvertently touched a nerve. "So, are there things you're just never going to tell us?" he asked, his tone light but probing. Timothy's gaze sharpened, and the polite veneer cracked. "I'm not here to play games," he said, voice steady but resonant with intensity, each word echoing in the studio. The audience reacted immediately, a collective intake of breath, murmurs, subtle gasps, a live broadcast capturing a human moment stripped of preparation or filter. Michael paused, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. He attempted a quick recovery, smiling and attempting to redirect, of course, we understand." But Timothy, resolute, stood. The motion was deliberate, almost cinematic, a young actor asserting control in a space designed for scripted smiles and rehearsed charm. "I'm done," he said, a statement not of anger, but of finality, carrying a weight that seemed to reverberate through the studio walls. Cameras pivoted, capturing the unexpected departure from every angle. Audience members leaned forward. Producers whispered urgently, and the carefully choreographed rhythm of the morning show collapsed into real-time drama. The walk to the exit was brief, but every step was magnified by the tension in the room. The lights reflected off the polished floors, elongating shadows, creating a visual metaphor for the gravity of the moment. Michael remained seated, professional yet visibly recalibrating, aware that live television had just delivered a spectacle, beyond the control of any producer or director. The audience, both in studio and at home, could feel the energy shift, a collision of human emotion, public expectation, and media machinery that no one had rehearsed for as Timothée disappeared. Behind the studio doors, whispers erupted, caught by the sensitive microphones and amplified across the digital landscape. Social media accounts quickly uploaded clips, each caption more sensational than the last. Timothée storms off GMA. Unexpected meltdown leaves host stunned. Within minutes, the moment had transcended the broadcast, morphing into a viral phenomenon, dissected by fans, critics, and casual viewers alike. Every nuance, the slight tightening of the jaw, the measured steps, the pause before departure, became fodder for analysis, memes, and discussion. Backstage, producers scrambled to contain the narrative, balancing professionalism with crisis management. Television, a medium built on predictability and controlled performances, had just been disrupted by authenticity in its rawest form. The human element, the real emotions, frustrations, and boundaries of a young actor under pressure had shattered. The polished veneer, leaving both audience and production in a suspended state of fascination and uncertainty. Commentators and entertainment. Journalists began to weigh in almost immediately. Some framed Timothée as temperamental, highlighting the clash as evidence of a young star struggling with the pressures of fame. Others defended his actions, emphasizing the importance of personal boundaries and the right to self-respect under public scrutiny. The discourse was amplified by the immediacy of social media, where every second of hesitation, every glance, every syllable could be replayed, slowed down, and scrutinized. Meanwhile, Michael, ever the professional, maintained composure on air, continuing the segment with a slightly restrained energy, acknowledging the audience's shock without dwelling on the departure. It was a delicate balance, acknowledging the extraordinary moment while maintaining the show's continuity. The production crew, fully aware of the virality unfolding in real time, worked to stabilize both the broadcast and the narrative. Behind the cameras, the atmosphere was electric, a tangible mix of adrenaline, uncertainty, and awe at the unfolding spectacle. In the days following, the clips circulated endlessly, dissected for micro-expressions, tone, and implied meaning. Each playback revealed new layers: the subtle prelude, the build-up, the intensity in Timothée's voice, the slight falter in Michael's charm. Analysts highlighted the tension as emblematic of a broader cultural dialogue about celebrity, privacy, and the pressures of public life. The incident was not just a clash of personalities. It became a case study in how live television can capture moments of raw, unfiltered human emotion. Timothée's actions, though brief, left an indelible mark. It wasn't merely a celebrity walking off a set, it was a young actor asserting control in a space that rarely allows for imperfection, demonstrating the collision between personal integrity and public expectation. The pause in the interview, the measured yet assertive words, and the final walk to the exit were magnified by context, scrutiny, and anticipation, becoming a cultural touchpoint that would reverberate across media platforms for days, weeks, and eventually months, even as statements were issued, both from GMA and Timothée's representatives. The moment remained etched in the public consciousness. The narrative had already been established, a volatile yet human display of frustration, a clash between an individual's boundaries and the expectations of live television. The event sparked debates about professionalism, respect, and the pressures of modern celebrity culture. Fans rallied in defense, critics questioned the behavior, and social media dissected every frame, creating a dialogue that extended far beyond the confines of the studio. In that brief, explosive segment, Timothée Chalamet challenged the carefully constructed rhythms of live television. The exchange, captured in real time, was a rare glimpse into the vulnerability and assertiveness of a public figure navigating the impossible expectations of fame. Every pause, every glance, every carefully chosen word was a testament to the complex interplay between personal agency and public performance. By the time the clip had been shared across news networks, entertainment programs, and countless social media feeds, the story had already taken on a life of its own. It wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a cultural moment, a reflection of the tensions inherent in celebrity life, the pressures of live media, and the raw authenticity that surfaces when humans are pushed to their limits. The exchange that shocked millions had begun as a simple question, but it became a narrative of control, emotion, and the delicate balance between performance and humanity. Even after the studio returned to routine, the reverberations lingered. Editors, producers, and viewers alike continued to dissect the moment, replaying the exchange, analyzing nuances, and debating motives. It was a reminder that in the age of live broadcasting and instantaneous sharing, a single moment charged with emotion, authenticity, and human complexity can transcend its original context and become part of the cultural lexicon. A story retold in headlines, discussions, and viral clips across the digital world. The cameras may have stopped rolling, but the impact of that exchange would endure. Every clip shared, every reaction posted, every analysis published served to solidify its place in the ongoing narrative of Timothée Chalamet's public life. What began as a simple interview became a profound moment of tension, reflection, and conversation, leaving audiences captivated, divided, and irrevocably drawn into the drama that had unfolded live before their eyes. The fallout was immediate, explosive, and impossible to ignore. As the clip of Timothée Chalamet walking off Good Morning America circulated across social media, the internet erupted. Twitter feeds filled with screenshots, reaction videos, and GIFs capturing the precise moment he stood, jaw set, eyes flashing with quiet intensity. TikTok users recreated the scene in dramatic reenactments, while Instagram stories shared split-second reactions with captions ranging from disbelief to admiration. The speed at which the clip spread was staggering. A microsecond of live television had become a global spectacle, dissected, debated, and consumed by millions. News outlets scrambled to report, each headline framing the event with its own narrative lens. Some described Timothée as volatile, temperamental, or difficult to interview, emphasizing the chaos in the studio and the shock on Michael Strahan's face. Others defended him, highlighting the pressures of celebrity culture and the often intrusive nature of live interviews. Pundits and entertainment analysts offered commentary, noting that the incident was less about anger and more about a young actor asserting boundaries in a medium that rarely allows space for human imperfection. The story became a mirror reflecting not only the event itself, but the broader tensions between fame, privacy, and the public's insatiable curiosity.